Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Asperger Studios. On this very special edition, are you somebody that's been bullied and doesn't know what to do? Well, my next guest is a lecturer who goes all over Canada talking about bullying and what can be done, and he tells a story about it. So sit back, relax, and grab your favorite beverage, and I'll see you on the other side. See you there.
I wanna believe in the truth, but only see what I'm shown. Got the freedom to choose, but can't decide on my own. Follow what the group is thinking, bottle up my intuition till it's popping.
You know what? Oh, can you give me one moment?
Sure, hang on. Hello and welcome back to a very special episode of Inside the Asperger Studios. Today I'm joined with Alain Pelletier, who is here to talk about bullying and how it needs to be stopped. Welcome to the show, Alain.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miles.
You can call me Reed.
Thank you very much, Reed.
Alain, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
I so my name is Alain Pelletier, and I am a professional anti-bullying public speaker. We call this it's not so much true, but we call us ourselves youth speakers or public speakers. I mainly speak to students from grade 1 to 12. But it's getting more and more in the field where I do parent sessions, teacher sessions, and workplace bullying as well. So I started off as a youth speaker. I just transformed into a regular public speaker in the wide sense of the word, meaning I speak to every audience. But all of the speeches I do is they're all on the subject of bullying. So I have multiple ones, but they're all on the same subject.
All right, let's start off with why do you feel people get bullied in the first place?
Well, it's a loaded question. There's different answers to this. Um, Mostly, I'll say that the reason why people do the act first of all, we need to separate straight off the bat. We need to separate the identity from the actions, right? Because I wouldn't want to have someone and I identify someone as a bully. I like to identify someone that did or said something that I was ever qualified as bullying. So, in the sake of this podcast, I'll say a bully, but I don't qualify a certain individual as a bully for the rest of their lives. I don't identify the person as a bully. I identify the actions of the words, right? So we need to understand that up to a certain level, up to the about the place where we can truly understand empathy and sympathy, which is an emotion where I can understand what you're feeling or I can feel what you're feeling. We can share the same emotion. Up to that point in our emotional development, we usually go on through life and we do certain things and we think that everybody else are feeling the exact same emotion we are when we're faced with the same situation. Say if I'm playing a game and I get mad, I kind of feel like everybody's mad. Or if I tell a joke, or if I play a game, or I insult someone, and I think that insult's funny, I'll think and believe that whoever saw, heard, or received the insult are going to feel the exact same way I'm feeling. So it's not necessarily because the people are a bad person, or they're bad people. They just don't understand that other the impacts that can be caused faced with the certain situations. So first of all, the people that do the bullying don't necessarily understand that it's bullying, right? And if a teacher or a parent not corners them, but ask them, hey, why did you say that? They'll say, well, it was just a joke. And this is where you need to realize that they're right. They're not lying. It was a joke to them, but they just understand that it was a joke for everybody, right? But you can tell them and explain to them that, hey, that was just not a joke. And that process is going to be, it can be quite long until they get to a place where they can fully understand, truly feel and understand the emotion of empathy, sympathy, right? But those emotions come really late in our development. So it's, and some not at all, right? So it can take a little bit of time, but it is doable.
Now, do you feel that as a person, should confront the bully, or should we just like not, as people say, not give fuel to the fire?
No, you, well, okay, as a victim or as a professional or as an adult.
As a victim.
I got two answers for each, and what,
Let's do
that's why
both.
I'm asking
Let's
for
go both
both.
ways.
Well, as a victim, because we say, okay, I'll first of all, as a victim, if you confront the bully, we always say to the kids, well, um, confront or stand up for yourself, and that stand up for yourself can be very gray as an explanation. We can understand of very different ways, a lot of different ways, what that means. If you stand up for yourself, let's say, okay, let's say kid A is bullying me, and they say, you know what, just don't react, don't do anything. Let's say that that person's calling me a name and I don't react. That person's gonna say, well, oh, that name doesn't create any reaction. It doesn't get a pop. The reason why he or she are doing this is to get a pop, because whenever you have a pop, you feel confident in yourself, right? You do it to find confidence in ourselves. That's what we do it. So if that name or that insult doesn't get any reactions, I'll say something a little meaner. And then you'll react, but then after a while, so just don't react. And then you don't react to that. And then they'll up the game a bit. They'll say a little something meaner again. And that will climax to, just crossing them in the halls and trying to scare themselves. Or I'll see you in the locker room. I'll see you and the monkey bar is at the back. I'll see you this weekend, right? To create fear. The goal is to create fear into another person towards ourselves. That's why they do it. So if ever you say to the victims, well, just don't react, bullying is going to get harder and more, and it'll be more frequent to be able to get that pop. So it is important to say don't react, but don't do nothing. And by nothing, I mean, don't. The thing that you need to do is don't react, turn around, and go see an adult. That's why. And whenever I speak to kids, I have, in baseball, you have 3 strikes. I have 4 strikes. First of all, if they were your friends or somebody, you can put them aside and say, hey, you remember when you said or did this? I didn't feel this good. I didn't appreciate. I know you said and you did it in the form of a joke. You just wanted to have a laugh, but I didn't think it was funny. Actually, it kind of hurt me. Can you stop it? Don't do it in a social environment. Don't create a scene or take them separately and do one-on-one. After that, if they still do it again, you can take them aside and say, hey, I just told you I didn't like it. I asked you to stop. Can you please make it stop? I'm not joking around. I'm being very serious. I don't like it. If they do it again, you say, hey, you know what? I asked you twice. You're still doing it. You understand that this makes me feel like this. You're not doing it again. This is what's going to happen. Either you stop or I'm going to go see an adult at this and I'm going to tell them exactly what happened. I would prefer for you to stop on your own, but I mean, I want this to stop, and please don't take that choice away from me, or don't make me take that choice. I would rather you to stop. And then that 4th strike, if ever they do it again, stop, don't do anything, be great, don't react, just turn around, leave, go see an adult in which you trust and say, here's exactly what happened. I told them twice, I told them 3 times, exactly, and then they're going to take care of it, right? I truly believe that the school systems are well equipped and they understand fully on what they need to do. But if you go because we always say that the kids go see a teacher. Well, precisely at this time in the year, the teachers are probably very tired. They have this pressure of filling up all of this information until the end of the year. everybody's tired, everybody's cranky, the patients are running low, and the kids always going, Madame, Monsieur, and they're just their ears are buzzing. So the level of patience is not that well. So if you go yelling at them with all of those negative emotions, they're probably going to say, you go play that way, you go play that way. It doesn't mean that they don't want to hear you. It doesn't mean that it's not important you have to say. It just simply means that you didn't verbalize it, you didn't bring it up in a proper way, right? So there's a process to this. So those 4 strikes on is what I tell the students are whenever you do go through this is what you need. These are the 4 steps you need to take.
Now, do you think
And
go on?
because you had a double question, right? So if they're a victim and they say you don't react, this is what you should do. And if you're an adult, and you have a kid coming towards you, there's 3 things that you need to tell your kids as an adult. There's the best moment in the story or in your story that you need to talk to an adult. There's the best time in the day and there's the best way. So the best moment, right? Because if a victim goes through something, chances are they're gonna wait way too long. They're gonna try to fix it on themselves. Because if they don't do it, it's gonna stop for a little while. If they don't react, it's gonna stop for a certain little level of time. It's gonna come up later on. It's gonna restart again, but it's gonna stop. So they'll go through the process. Whenever they take the decision to go see an adult, it's probably gonna be very late in the process, and their emotion are gonna grow. Meaning it's easier for a victim to go earlier. That's not easy, but easier, right? The emotion are easier to explain and easier to identify. If they wait too long, that process that level of anger is gonna come into panic. It's gonna come. It's right. It's gonna morph. It's gonna grow. So the more that it grows, harder it will be for them to identify and to explain it. Right? It's a joke. They say it's a joke, right? I'm going to be the problem. So it's going to be very difficult. So the quicker, the better. The time during the day, right? Usually we tell them to go see an adult and they'll go through, they'll go see the teacher that's going to be responsible for supervising recess. They'll go see the teacher responsible for supervising the cafeteria, the people that run into hallways. They'll go see them. But the way they go in is they go with all of those negative emotions that bottle, because it just happened, right? They're just going to go and yell it out. And they're going to say, whoa, 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 it's not a good way of explaining yourself. And they're not going to be in a proper emotional state in order for them to identify and to explain what's happening. And the last thing is I tell the adults or schools, I say, you guys should come up with a safe word. It could be as simple as, do you have a minute? Right? If I'm a teacher and a kid comes, to me or in my classroom or where I'm working, and they say, hey, Mr. Alain, do you have a minute? This is where I close my laptop, I put my fork, my pen down, I turn completely towards that kid, and I give them 100% of my attention. Because whenever a kid tells that safe word, like, do you have a minute? That's the white flag. That's the, hey, the 3 taps, right? I need help. This is serious. I don't know how to identify something. I don't know how to verbalize it. I'm being serious. I need help. And I think that you'd be a good person to listen to me if I talk to you. So can we find a minute in your schedule for us to have this platform in which I can communicate and have the time in the world? If it's not the right time, they'll tell you, right now it's not the right time, but come and see me in 15 minutes. I'll be able to listen to you. You need to identify a proper place and time in the person's schedule whenever they can listen, and to give them the proper communication or conversation that they deserve to have. So that's what you need to do as an adult. So best way, best time, and best what did I say? The best moment in the story, the best time in the day, and the best way. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, really.
Perfect.
Now, do you think people bully because they are projecting their own insecurities onto others?
Sometimes. This is how bullying starts. The literature says it starts somewhere between 3 and 4 years old. Let's say I'm in a daycare and I'm playing with a ball, and I'm having the most fun I can possibly have with that ball.
Mm-hmm.
And another kid comes to me and says, "Hey, Alain, can I have the ball?" Of course, I'm going to say, "I don't want to give you the ball. I'm playing with it right now. I'm not bothering anybody. I'm not playing with I'm playing by myself, but I'm having some fun. And I want to keep playing by myself." That kid is probably feeling rejection. He's being said no by a peer that doesn't have any authority over them, right? That ego sets in. That's not fun. So with anger or frustration or from an emotion that they don't understand, that kid pushes me, I fall, and when I fall, I kind of drop the ball. The kid, as soon as I drop it, picks it up. I press pause on my explanation because obviously a teacher or a person that's responsible for that group is going to take the kid. You can't be pushing another friend, so he or she's gonna get in trouble. But no matter what happened, that kid that just stole the ball just understood the first thing. Even if they got rejected, even though they felt something that's not fun, they can if they get physical with somebody else, they'll get exactly what they want, and I'm gonna feel good about myself because I just felt confident, even though I was said no, I still got what I wanted. So that feels good. I feel a sense of power inside of me. Since I feel a sense of control. I fast forward later on that day, later on that week, little Alain is still playing with that ball. Kid A comes to me again and says, "Hey, Alain, can I play with the ball?" And I'm going to say, "You know what? Here's the ball. You can play with it. I'll find myself another game." Because I remember what you said, what you did last time. You pushed me. That kind of hurt. Maybe I felt it hurt me. Maybe I felt scared. Maybe I cried a bit. I didn't like it, right? I don't want to get pushed again. So here's the ball. I'll find myself another game. That kid just understood the second thing. If ever they can have someone fear them, they're going to get exactly what they want, and they're not going to be said no. Nobody's going to say no. They're not going to have any rejection. So they bypass rejection. They go straight to power, so straight to confidence. So it's not a reflection. It's in order to avoid something else, right? We don't want to feel rejection. So I'm going to do everything in my power to avoid that emotion and go straight. We want to reject rejection. We don't want to have the feeling of rejection. We're all looking for a feeling of confidence. We all want to be confident in ourselves. So we want to bypass that feeling to go straight to the other one as best we can. So us as educators or as a parent, we need to show avenues in which that a kid can take in order to go get that confidence in themselves. Whenever they do, they're not going to go press it on somebody else. They're not going to socially go get it or physically go get it in order to get that sense of power or confidence themselves.
All right. Now let's talk a little bit about yourself. What brought this up? Were you bullied yourself growing up?
Yeah, I was, but all right. I'll say this. I was bullied, but I was not a victim. To me, being bullied and being a victim of bullying is two completely different things. When I speak to adults, teachers or parents, or even if I meet new people, they'll ask me what I do for a living, right? And whenever I do tell them, everybody says the same thing. They all say, "Hey, I got bullied when I was a kid," and I understand. Everybody that goes through life will eventually face a situation that they can define as bullying. They'll see themselves as a victim. So the story that I give throughout my conferences are based on true events, meaning every one of those details in that story are taken at some point in time in my life, right? The story is not a true story. It's inspired by true events, meaning I took a whole bunch of situations that did happen to me and I made it a story where I can tell it in front of an audience, right? So if I jump up and down certain levels and I say, well, in 1986, this happened, and then 1992, this happened, right? It goes over their heads. So I just made it a 6-month story with all of those true situation. So an audience can follow me in a nice scope of time, right? It's to create imagery in their heads. So I did get bullied when I was a kid, but I'm not a victim. And by this I mean I had the privilege to have a lot of positive parental presence, meaning my parents were very involved in my youth and throughout my life. They gave me space and confidence that any point in time I would talk to them, they would listen, and they wouldn't overreact or underreact. They would ask me every time I would come up with something, they would listen to me and they would ask me questions, but they wouldn't be like detectives. They weren't what's happening. They weren't poking the bear. They were waiting until I came up to them, and when I did, they created an environment where I felt comfortable and unjudged by them to be able to talk about and make myself about what happened and make myself vulnerable. And whenever that happened, they would ask me questions. And every single time they would ask me, what's the solution? What you want me to do? Do you want me to go see a teacher? Do you want me to go see the principal? Do you want to call the parents of the kid? Because I lived in a small town and everybody kind of knew everybody. Do you want me to do nothing? And what's the solution? What do you want me to do? Sometimes I just wanted to have an ear where I can verbalize something and to see my me myself see my understanding of the situation, right? I wasn't seeking a solution. I was seeking clarity in whatever I was going through, right? The emotional process. So sometimes I would say nothing. I don't know what the solution is, but I don't want you to do anything. That was it. They wouldn't overstep. They would do exactly what I said. And after a certain point, I would say, you know what? This is the solution. Here's how I think we could approach this problem or approach this situation. And we spoke about that process on how we can approach it, and they kind of pushed me in understanding that process, right? So we wouldn't go seek that solution right away. We would, make that solution more clear in their mind, in my mind, to make sure they understood and I understood. So and secondly, they gave me a whole bunch of avenues where I could find that um, emotion of confidence in myself, right? They enrolled me in karate classes and swimming classes and ski, and they enrolled me in anything that I could possibly get my hands on. They never said no. So whenever I go out of my way and they would lift me here and there, and I, I I wasn't very good in school. I didn't have a lot of friends, but I knew that if I went to karate class, all my bad day would go away and I would feel good about myself and I would appreciate that hour to 2 hours that I would do. I with my it was my fortress of solitude, right? I could go swimming and feel good about myself. So I had avenues in which I can take to go get that confidence, even though I didn't get it in school. So they gave me the proper platform in which I can emotionally grow, physically grow, and I get offended or it didn't change who I was. The problem is whenever there's a victim of bullying and they don't have that positive parental presence, they kind of go through and it defines them. That's how what you were telling me before we started. It kind of redefines that person and it affects them negatively speaking, and it can grow on through the rest of their lives, right? So it does have an impact that could be to mid and to long term if you don't have that presence with you. So I did to answer the long answer is I was bullied, but I was not a victim of bullying, right? So that's the difference.
So what made you want to be a speaker on anti-bullying?
It kind of happened by accident, actually. I had a person say I need to bring this speaker on bullying. They knew me quite well. They asked me if I wanted to do it. I said yes, and I wrote something just to help out a school. And I think that not because I did some supply teaching. I did teaching on different level, but not in schools. And I think that that's playing on my behalf. It's playing well for me, because whenever you're a teacher, you go through university and they show you how to think and how to be a teacher. So it's very intellectual. There'll be great people to teach a kid and to bring them from point A to point B. But it's not bullying is not an intellectual problem, it's an emotional problem. So, and you can't fix an emotional problem with a logical explanation or a logical, because whenever I go in schools, we could do this experiment any day of the week. You go into school and you ask a kid, what's bullying? Tell you what, 100% of the students, when I see them and I ask them the question, they all tell me something that could, logically they can be defined as bullying. They all know what it is, right? But when they're faced with it, the emotion takes over and they kind of freeze up. And that emotion, you need to understand that the process of the emotional reaction in order to get the intellectual in, right? So it's whenever I go in schools, I see and I understand that they're doing an extremely good job into putting definitions and process into the kids' brains. They're phenomenal at it. But that's not the only answer we need to give them. We need to show them the emotional process and then attach the definition on that emotion. Whenever that process is going through the emotion and then get the intellectual part at it, that's when you have stability. You need that hook, right? If ever I go tell a speech or go to a conference and I tell this story, I don't know, about this lady that walks her poodle every day at 9 o'clock, and something funny happens and I make the audience laugh, and then I bring up whatever subject I'm about to speak on, and I always do references on that story. Guess what's gonna happen? Whenever they leave, a day, a week, a month, a year after, they'll be able to tell me exactly what happened to that lady that walked her poodle every day at 9 o'clock. They'll tell me what happened on that specific day, and they'll be able to tell them exactly what I taught them, because I attached it to an emotional process. You need the hook in order to create longevity into the understanding of the problem, right? So whenever I go into schools, I tell the story, and through that story as a vehicle, I generate, transmit, and make the audience feel, even if it's just a fraction of an emotion, of what someone could feel if they would ever be faced with the situation that could be defined as bullying. And whenever I tell the story, then I get the intellectual part and I attach it to the emotional process, right? Whenever you go through that, you remember. And when I go to schools, I usually go in schools every 3 years, because I have a speech for the grade 1, 2, 3s and a different one for the grade 4, 5, 6, and so on, right? So whenever I go into elementary or secondary school every 3 years, the kids that I see a second time remember what I did 3 years ago. They'll be able to tell me about what happened and what I'm about to tell them, retell them again 3 years afterwards. So the teaching or the whatever I'm about to teach or what I want them to learn sticks because of that emotion, right? So whenever I brought it up, the kids loved it. It was by accident. Like I said, they just asked me. I did it. And when one school likes it, a board kind of hears about it. When a board likes it, more boards kind of hear about it. And 14 years later, you're in multi-states, multi-provinces, and you do this full time. So it was an accident. I just became a speaker, and the process, the blueprint of my speech is what makes me different from everything else in a speaker or in schools, however they approach it, right? So I'm not replacing anybody in schools. I'm working hand in hand with the schools in order to create stability and longevity into that process of understanding bullying. Yeah.
So what do you tell kids about bullying when it comes to like those who hold it in and don't tell anyone? What do you tell them to make it important that they do speak up about it?
So the story that I tell is not built in a way where it doesn't have a happy ending. And by this, I mean, the story that I tell doesn't have a solution. It's not there to show them a solution. That's not the goal. The goal is not to show them a solution. The goal is to show them exactly how a victim reacts and feels and what type of decision they're going to make whenever they're faced with that emotional process, right? So whenever I speak to kids, um, about 4 or 5 place in the story, I'll have kids tell me, "Don't do that. Go see an adult. Stop. They'll tell me the answer, what I should do, but they'll know what to do. But whenever you're faced and when you're in shock and whenever you have all those emotions, you're feeling, you're reacting, you're not thinking. So whenever they're in they're in the heads, they're not feeling it. They see that I'm not doing well. Maybe they feel a fraction of it, but they're not in shock with that emotion. I just give them a fraction, right? A small a small version of that emotion. And whenever they go through it, and they see, oh, this is not what I should have done. This is not what I should have done. This is not what I should have done. And when I put the theory on it, and I say, well, you remember when this happened and this happened and this happened, this, what do you think I should have done there? What do you think I should have done there? This, and I kind of redo all the steps and all the bad decision. I'm not showing them what decision you should do. I'm showing them what decision a victim will do in face with those situations, faced with those circumstances. And when I unfold the story, they'll tell me, here's what I should have done, here's what I should have done, here's what I should have done. So whenever they see, hear, or they feel, or they do something, they'll create the hope. My hope is them to create links or bridges on that story. And they say, you know what? Alain reacted this way. I feel like I should be doing this, but this is what I should be doing, because this leads me to nowhere, right? This is where this leads me. But if I take a different approach, or I take a different solution, or I take a different decision, it could lead me to another place, right? So I don't tell the story for them to realize, here's what you should say. I tell the story, here's what a victim will do or say or react if ever they're faced with the situation. So yeah, that's how I approach that answer from your question.
Right. What do you tell adults in the workplace how to handle bullying? Because I know that's a whole other thing, because now you're in a professional setting and you want to handle it with a professional manner.
Yeah, you're talking about workplace bullying?
Yeah.
Okay. So workplace, the problem is they'll have protocols. They'll go see the person that did the bullying, the person that received the bullying. They'll go through that, and it'll stop. And they'll tell, hey, this needs to go in a record. They'll have a folder, and they'll have that, certain things happen. So a certain employee can have, a thick folder to their names. But the problem is they'll wait till that folder is way too thick before they do something drastic about it, right? So that if one employee is causing a lot of trouble, that kind of sets the DNA within the business, and if not all, multiple employees will hate their jobs because of that person, what they do, and if ever they're quick. There's a saying being said that should be they should be quick to hire and quick to fire. Meaning, if you're a person that doing the hiring, trust your gut, and if that gut tells you should hire them, do it. But the minute your gut changes, the minute you say, you know what, I just made a mistake, let them go as soon as possible. You should be quick on the coming in and quick on the coming out. If you do that, you'll have the employees that will stick for a long time are going to be good employees, and they're not going to have negative DNA. They're not going to have a negative impact on the other employees. And if the employees like their job, They're gonna come. That like the numbers are gonna follow them. Their work is gonna precede them. So yeah, they should be quick to hire and quick to fire.
All right. I want to talk on a very important subject, is the fact that why do you think people bully those who are disabled? Do you feel it's because they see them as weak and an easy target, or is there more to it?
Exactly. Um, when I talk to schools, I always say, of course, everybody tells themselves, I want my kid to go into school where there's no bullying. And whenever you tell a teacher, stop bullying, they're going to come up with an intellectual solution to an emotional problem, and it's not going to work. We need to understand that bullying does not go away. We can't stop bullying. And you can be mad at what I just said. You can be frustrated. At some point, you're going to realize that I'm right. And the minute you're going to realize that I'm right, you're going to see the process a whole new other way. Because it it does, and it will always happen. The only thing we can make it is 99% better. That's it. That's not the goal. The goal is not to stop bullying. The goal is to minimize the damage. This being said, if I'm a teacher or I'm a parent, my goal is, like I said, it's not to stop it, it's to minimize the damage. We all want to find confidence in ourselves. As an adult, this is what you need to teach to your students. This is what you need to teach to your kids. Give them ways, show them how to get that confidence for themselves. Whenever my kids come up to me and you say, hey, Dad, I have this drawing for you, and they do something, and they come up to me, they're so proud. And I say, hey, I'm very proud of you, whatever you just did or said. Are you proud of yourself? You need to find ways for them to generate and them to realize what I'm feeling is I'm proud of myself and I can identify it. Very, very simple. A couple of months ago, I was going with I have two young kids, 4 and 7, and I was going to swim class. And whenever you come out of the changing rooms, there's always like not vending machines or places you can put quarters and you can have candy, right? It's always there. It's normal, right? It's a place where a lot of kids are. And at some point I used to, and all the kids, whenever they make that turn, all the parents make the turn, the kids go straight to the candy. And a couple of months ago, I gave them each a quarter, and I told them, go put it in one of the vending machines, one of those candy dispenser, and don't turn the handle, just put it there, and come sit with me. So we had a bench, and they were all excited, fidgety, and the game was, I want them to see another kid find that quarter. Now I'm not being nice, because I'm kind of giving candies to kids that maybe that parent didn't want them to get candies, right? Maybe they didn't have that. I'm kind of imposing it on them, right? But anyway, hopefully they brush your teeth. The goal was not to impose candy on a kid to a parent that didn't want them to eat the candy. The goal was, I wanted them to see the kids being excited. So whenever the kids came in, it's a quarter, right? Or we're talking about a quarter. And they were so happy that they could have the candy. So they take cups, but they saw the happiness that they created within that quarter. I wanted them to feel however you felt when you gave something to somebody else. And then I kind of came back at that. How do you feel? Why do you feel this way? Do you think it's nice, or do you feel like, I went through that process, so they understand that whenever they felt something, now they can identify, they know why they felt like that. The goal is to show them ways in order to get confidence and make them realize it's one thing to find the emotion, and it's a completely other thing to be able to identify and then to do whatever you just did again, to go get that feeling every time you go. Like I said, I like to go swimming. To me, it's my fortress of solitude. Whenever I go there, I feel at one with myself. I feel confident. I feel good. So I know that if I had a bad day or I'm feeling bad, I know that if I go there, I'm gonna feel good. I'm gonna get that confidence in myself I need. Maybe that time in order for me to think. Maybe it's going for a run or a walk, right? It allows me to have. We called it. The experts call it emotional intelligence. I don't like the word intelligence. I call it emotional understanding or introspection, right? Realizing that I'm going through something and then identify it, giving it a name, and then realizing what I did or what I said or how I came into that feeling, right? Understanding the whole process. So I understand why somebody would say intelligence. I just like emotional introspection a lot better.
Now, in your conference that you do you talk on the subject about cyberbullying and how to handle that?
Yeah. um Cyberbullying is a different branch. When I speak to kids, my conference is not on cyberbullying, it's on bullying at large. You're going to find emotional bullying, you're going to find social bullying, you're going to find physical bullying, you're going to find cyberbullying. They're all going to be branches, but the trunk is bullying, and it manifests in different ways, right? So the goal is not to have a specific conference in that branch. The goal is to be at large and then to specify the needs of the school, right? And obviously, when I speak to especially high schools, right? Now that cyberbullying does not exist in elementary, it does, but the impact should be a lot more present in high school. So the story is the line, the common denominator in everything is by text, by social media, by it does. There's a silver lining in all through that story. It needs to be present, and the only reason why people do it is that feeling of them to hide. Right? They have an audience, but they kind of hide through that mask they have of that cyber name or that name they gave themselves, so they can be um, not identified for themselves. They can be a different person, right? But whenever a person deals with cyberbullying, you, screenshots are phenomenal, and I keep seeing situation where bystanders took phones and filmed. Now, and I hear everybody say, "Oh my God, that's such a bad thing. They're filming. What are they doing?" But bystanders are not going to physically stop the bully or physically stop this. They're not going to do that. I for one believe that phones can be used in a positive way. Meaning, if ever you're a bystander and you film something, don't go on a site and give it to anybody else. Take that video or that picture or that whatever, that screenshot, bring it to the principal, bring it to the social worker, bring it to an adult in which you trust, and show them what you just saw. If ever you create that bridge, and if ever the bystander creates that bridge, nobody's going to use cyberbullying. They're not going to be able to hide because you have those phones everywhere, right? And now you see everybody's being filmed all the time. If you don't do anything with that video, now you're giving power to the bully. But if you do create that bridge and you bring it to an adult, now you're giving power to the victims, right? So they can't hide anywhere. So take the screenshots, take the videos, take the pictures, but do something with that. Don't be passive at that. There's a difference between an active bystander and a passive bystander. And if you're passive, you're giving power to the situation, giving power to the bully, because they're going to say to themselves, nobody's not doing anything. So they agree with me. So it's the world against one person. But if you do something with it, you're going to create power. You're going to give that power to the victim. You're going to say, well, I can't hide. I can't do it anymore because every time I do it, I get in trouble. And at a certain point, they're going to realize that you can't hide from the situation anymore. So yeah, you're giving power to the victim. So that's what
Now,
they should do.
now, in your conference, do you bring up the fact that bullying can lead to depression and possible suicide?
I did at first. I don't anymore. And at first, I mean like 14, 15, 16 years ago. I don't do it anymore unless somebody asks me the question. The goal is not to give a conference on anti-suicide. The goal is to give a conference on anti-bullying, even though you know where it could lead. And high schools, they kind of make that step, they make that jump. High schools, even though I don't talk about it and I don't verbalize it, there's nothing in my words that can be identified, but you kind of know, emotionally speaking, where this goes. And they'll ask me the question. And whenever they do, I'll ask a teacher, are you guys comfortable for me going there and for me to answer the question? And none of them say no, but I still ask to make sure that the teachers or the schools are okay for me to go on that subject. It can be thin ice, but I do feel comfortable in answering certain questions in front of the crowd. And sometimes I'll give whatever comfortable I get in front of the crowd. And then I'll say, come and see me after the show. We'll talk about it some more. And I'll have the social worker or the psychologist, or I have the teachers that are overseeing, the student bodies. I'll have them present and I'll go through the process of, so they can, because when I leave, I don't go back, right? Whenever I go in schools, I have pictures. I don't have movies. I don't work in the school for a whole school year. I work in the school for half a day or a full day, and that's it, right? But I just want to make sure that whenever I leave, I have an adult present and they understand what they told me, I understand what I said, and they can keep the process of understanding, going whenever I'm not there, just to create that bridge. So whenever I say go see an adult, I do it as well.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your conference. What do you talk about, how you present it, and what kind of reception you've gotten from it?
Well, the blueprint, as I spoke earlier, is I have a speech for the grade 1, 2, 3s, one for the 4, 5, 6, one that's for the 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, one for the parents, one for the teachers, and one for workplace. So what is it, 6 or 7? And all of those conferences are built the same way, meaning they all have a monologue and they all have a speech. And the monologue is, how I told you, is a story where I can, as a platform in which I can create, generate, transmit, and make the audience feel. So whenever they go through that process, they have that emotional definition. And then I go through this process of, I called my speeches the 5 faces of bullying. And the reason why I call that is I think that there's 5 actors: the victim, the bully, the bystander, the parents, and the teachers. And I kind of go through all of those actors and I redefine bullying in all of those actors, and I tell them, here's what you should do. So the solution for victims, solution for bullies, bystanders, parents, and teachers. And I kind of went through a couple of those as I spoke with you. But so we have an emotional understanding, intellectual definition, and then I have the solution that comes with all of that. So that's the process of understanding and go through them. What changes, we understand that, like I said, high school and elementary schools, they don't see bullying the same way. They won't react and they won't define it the same way. So the story changes when I speak to elementary schools and when I speak to high schools, and it changes when I speak to parents, and changes when I speak to businesses, right? The process is the same, but the story is completely different. So the story changes depending on the group in which I'm faced, and the emotion changes, right? There's a big emotional difference between grade 12 and grade 6 and grade 1. So I adapt, emotionally speaking, to the group in which the goal is not to make a kid have nightmares at night whenever and so I give them, I generate, they'll react the same. But if you saw all of those speeches, you'd see that I take different ways, or I generate different emotions, and I don't go as deep as I go whenever I speak to high schools and elementary schools. So, but they'll react the same way, but I give them whatever emotion they can identify depending on where they are in their development. So the story changes, the definition changes, and the emotion in which I generate changes. So that's the blueprint of all of my speeches.
Now, what kind of reception has your speeches gotten from grade school to the workplace to from parents?
Yep. Um, they all start. Well, the kids, they kind of see it's funny because I play a role, right? I act, so they kind of like it. The parents and the workplace, they're kind of intrigued because they don't know. It kind of takes them by surprise. So if you don't know, but I always say 12 minutes. After 10 to 12 minutes, you'll stop thinking and you'll start feeling, right? The speech that the story that I tell, the story that you listen, and the movie that you play in your mind are three completely different stories. And the goal is to get out of your intellectual and go sit in your emotional. And that takes for an adult about 10 to 12 minutes. And after that hits, it's kind of like if I go to fish, I would give a line, but at first that line is very small and not very strong. And as I go, that line becomes thicker and stronger. And that certain point, it'll become a stick. That stick will become a metal bar, and that stick it reaches their emotion and my emotion. And after a certain point, whenever I lean in or if I back out, they'll follow me. They'll feel the exact same way I'm generating to them. So I'm kind of like a Care Bear read. That's what I do. I generate those emotions, and they'll see it, right? Like I said, the first step in empathy and sympathy is being able to read an emotion on someone else's face. I kind of realized through the years that my face moves a lot, a lot more than I should. Sometimes it kind of throws me under the bus, but you can easily read it. I'm kind of like I'm not Jim Carrey, but Jim Carrey moves his face a lot, right? I'm not in that spectrum, but I can move my face a lot. So I can mimic or generate those emotions quite easily. And whenever you can identify, even though you don't feel them, you'll see them, you'll understand what I'm going through. You can write them down easily when you're an adult. And the number one thing I have people say to me, and this happens every day, they'll tell me that's exactly what I went through. And they're not talking about the story, meaning nobody stole my lunch, nobody grabbed my bag or broke it, nobody kind of pushed me in the hall. They're not talking about the story. They're talking about the emotional process. All of them. I have the exact same thing happen to me, but they're not talking about the story. They're talking about the emotion I made them feel through that story. That's what they're telling me. So I every time somebody says that to me, I kind of give myself a pat in the back, say, hey, if you reached that person, if that person identified themselves into that story, I created a bridge and I made them realize something that maybe they never understood before. So I kind of feel good about myself. That's the number one thing people say to me. That's exactly what happened to me, and I feel good about it. The goal is not to say, hey, look at me, have pity towards me. The goal is not that at all. The goal is to give do you know why the Mona Lisa is Mona Lisa? Right? It was painted by somebody very famous, Leonardo da Vinci, but the reason that the Mona Lisa is the Mona Lisa, there's two white the smile that they say that it's no emotion, and the theory or the legend people say that wherever you are in the room, it seems like she's looking at you. Now, I'm not saying I'm Da Vinci. I'm saying that the story, the speech is built in a way where I don't care who's in front of me. I don't care if you're the victim, the bully, the bystander, the parents and teachers. You're going to see yourself in that kid that I'm telling you. I don't care if you're a boy or a girl. You're going to see yourself, a version of you. You saw that. You felt that. You saw yourself as a victim. Everybody, when I'm done, everybody's going to wear the hat. They're going to wear a victim's hat. They're going to wear a bully hat, or they're going to wear a bystander. Maybe they wore different hats in different situations, but they're going to create bridges on what they've been through in their lives. And that's what's important. They saw themselves in that role. They saw themselves in this role. They saw themselves as this role. And God forbid it happens again, but if it does, they know now how to identify that situation. They can identify the emotion. They'll know what to do with that emotion in that specific situation. That's the goal.
All right. Now, I want to end before I hit the last question with, what is your definition of bullying?
That's perfect. Uh, Bullying is defined. I'll start with this. Bullying is defined by something that's being done or said towards somebody from someone with, I'll say, power, but either a boss or physically power or older, um, over that's being bad over a certain period of time. And I kind of don't like that definition because it's very gray. The only way I can identify bullying is how the victim feels. And I kind of brush through that question a little. I introduced the question earlier, right? There's a difference between being bullied and being a victim of bullying, right? That's the intro of this, the definition. So you need to realize that there's two different ways. And then I say, the only way to stop bullying is not to stop the bullies. Like I said earlier, it's gonna happen. It does, it did, it does, and it will always happen. We can, minimize it, but we can't stop it. The only way we can get close to that, stop the bully, is to get the victims out of the equation. If you show your students or your kids on how to become confident themselves, you're not. I never saw a wolf in a field where there were no sheep. A wolf doesn't attack a lion, it gets to sheeps. Get rid of the sheeps. If you don't get any sheep, you're not going to have any wolves. The only way you can stop bullying in your school if you get the sheeps out of the equation, right? I think that the schools are very good in identifying certain actions or certain words in being bullies. They know how to grab a kid or a student and say, hey, you did something wrong, and they're expert at it. But if they do the same thing with victims, and the way we do it is to find ways in order for them to get confident themselves, it's going to stop earlier. It's not going to create damage, and you're going to have a lot more people saying, I felt bullied, but I was not a victim of bullying. And that's the main difference we need to understand. So yeah, that's how I define bullying, Mr. Miles.
And finally, where can people find out more about your conference and get a hold of you?
I have a website, which is alainpelletier.ca. So you see my name, it's www.myname.ca. I don't have an agent. They ask way too much money. They'll ask way too much money for schools. So I answer my phone number and my email. That's my personal. I'm the one who's going to answer the phone. I'm the one who's going to answer the emails. I do that on my own. So if they want to reach me, all my contact and information is on that website. So that's the best way. They'll have videos, they'll have testimonies, they'll have everything they need to answer whatever question they have on that website.
And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Reed Miles. That was Alain Pelletier, and I'll see you in the next one. See you there. Thank you, Alain.
Thank you so much.